Ever wonder how far a nosy neighbor can push you before they end up in handcuffs? Let me tell you about the time I moved into Willow Creek, a picture-perfect suburb with manicured lawns, sparkling community pools, and a woman named Margaret Hensley, known to everyone as the HOA queen with a clipboard and a grudge. I'm a plumber, just trying to make a living, but Margaret made it her life's mission to turn my quiet new home into a battlefield. Buckle up, because this story of petty rules, concrete blocks, and a shocking arrest will leave you speechless. It all started when I moved into Willow Creek with my 2 kids, thrilled about the wide streets and the pool they couldn't stop splashing in. The neighborhood screamed, "American Dream!" And I was all in until I met Margaret. She was the HOA president, strutting around in her pressed blouses, her blonde bob so sharp it could cut glass. She didn't just enforce rules, she lived for them, her eagle eyes catching every blade of grass out of place. My first run-in came 3 months in. I'd had a late-night service call, so my work truck, a beat-up but reliable Ford with my company logo, sat in my driveway past sunrise. By 8 a.m., a crisp violation notice was slapped on my windshield. Commercial vehicles must be garaged. Bylaw 14.2. I groaned, scribbled a reminder to move it later, and figured that was that. Oh, how wrong I was. Margaret wasn't just strict, she was relentless. Over the next few weeks, she turned my life into a checklist of infractions. My lawn was 1/8 of an inch too long. My trash cans lingered curbside for 15 minutes after pickup. My kids' soccer goal in the front yard? Apparently it disrupted the neighborhood's social cohesion. Each notice came with a fine and a handwritten note from Margaret, her cursive dripping with fake politeness. "Let's keep Willow Creek pristine, Mr. Carter." I tried reasoning with her once, cornering her after a board meeting. "Rules are rules, Mr. Carter," she said, her smile tighter than her grip on her rulebook. "I'm just protecting our property values." But everyone knew Margaret didn't just enforce bylaws, she wrote them, bending the HOA board to her will like puppets on strings. Things got heated when I decided to spruce up my house with a new front door color. I picked a rich forest green, submitted it to the architectural committee, and got the green light. I spent a Saturday painting, proud of how it popped against the brick. The paint was still tacky when Margaret marched up, ruler and color chart in hand. "This is emerald green," she snapped. "Your approval was for sage green. Entirely different." I blinked, holding back a laugh. "They're the same shade, Margaret. The committee okayed it." She smirked, already scribbling on her tablet. "I'm overruling them. You have 48 hours to repaint, or daily fines start." I wanted to argue, but her smugness told me she'd already won this round. So, I repainted sage green, exactly as ordered, losing a weekend and a chunk of my patience. That was the moment I decided, no more playing nice. I started fighting back, quietly but deliberately. I read the HOA bylaws cover to cover, highlighting every vague clause and overreach. I chatted with neighbors, who whispered their own Margaret horror stories but were too scared to challenge her. I even called a buddy who's a real estate lawyer, and he confirmed what I suspected: half of Margaret's rules were legally shaky. I kept a log of every interaction, every notice, every condescending smirk. I was done being her punching bag. The real showdown came last Wednesday. I'd been up since dawn, racing to fix a burst pipe for an elderly client whose basement was turning into a swimming pool. I got it handled, drove home around noon, and turned onto my street only to slam on the brakes. My driveway was blocked by massive concrete barriers, the kind you see at roadwork sites. Standing beside them, arms crossed like a general, was Margaret, flanked by 2 guys from the HOA's landscaping crew. I parked on the curb, heart pounding, and walked over. "What the hell is this?" I asked, while VYing at the blocks. Margaret's eyes gleamed with triumph. "You've racked up 19 violations this quarter, Mr. Carter. The board has authorized extreme measures. These stay until you pay your fines and sign our compliance pledge." I clenched my fists, forcing my voice to stay steady. "You can't block my driveway, Margaret. That's my property." She waved a laminated copy of the bylaws like a Bible. Bylaw 19.6 grants us authority to enforce compliance. Maybe next time you'll think twice about parking that eyesore truck. I glanced at my truck, loaded with thousands of dollars and tools I needed to store in my garage. Margaret, move these blocks. Now. Her lips curled into a thin smile. Pay your fines first. That's when I pulled out my phone and hit record. Let me get this straight, I said, zooming in on her face. You're trapping me out of my own home until I pay disputed fines? Her smile faltered. Stop recording! That's a violation. I kept the camera rolling. Ohio's a one-party consent state, and we're in public. Last chance, move the blocks. Her face turned beet red. Not until you learn to follow rules. I'd had enough. I dialed 911, keeping my eyes on her. Someone's blocked my driveway with concrete barriers and won't let me access my property, I told the dispatcher. Margaret laughed, a high-pitched cackle. The police? For an HOA matter? They'll laugh you off. But her confidence cracked as I stayed calm, GIVYing the dispatcher my address. The landscapers, smelling trouble, mumbled excuses and bolted, leaving Margaret alone with her barricade. 2 cops showed up 10 minutes later. I showed them the VY Dale, explained the fines, the truck, the whole saga. They listened, then turned to Margaret. Ma'am, you can't block someone's property access, one officer said, his tone firm but patient. That's illegal detention, possibly false imprisonment. Margaret's jaw dropped. False imprisonment? I'm the HOA president. I'm enforcing our rules. The officer didn't blink. Your bylaws don't override state law. Remove the blocks, or we'll do it for you. Margaret doubled down, arms crossed tighter. I will not. He needs to face consequences. The officers exchanged a look, and my heart skipped a beat as one pulled out handcuffs. Margaret Hensley, you're under arrest for false imprisonment and criminal mischief. You should have seen her face: shock, rage, then pure panic. Arrest? For protecting our neighborhood? She shrieked, her voice echoing as neighbors peeked from their windows. I'm the president. This is absurd. The cuffs clicked, and she was still yelling as they led her to the patrol car. Do you know who I am? The second officer stayed to call a tow truck for the blocks while I gave my statement. He told me Margaret could face up to 6 months in jail, and a due law $1,000 fine for the misdemeanor charges. I stood there, watching the tow truck haul away her concrete power trip, feeling a mix of relief and disbelief. The next day, the HOA's VYC president called. Margaret was outbooted in an emergency meeting. The board was rewriting enforcement rules to stop another Margaret from rising. Turns out, they'd all been fed up but too spineless to act. 2 days later, Margaret showed up at my door, a shadow of her former self. No clipboard, no smugness, just a tired woman with a lawyer-negotiated apology. I didn't mean for this to happen, she mumbled. I was just keeping standards. Her plea deal? A month of community service, a due law $500 fine, and a restraining order keeping her 500 feet from my house. When I mentioned my CIVYL suit for harassment and emotional distress, her eyes widened. That could cost me everything, she whispered, finally grasping the mess she'd made. I leaned against the doorframe, echoing her favorite line with a half-smile. Rules are rules, Margaret. I don't make 'em. I just enforce 'em. She walked away, shoulders slumped, and I closed the door, knowing Willow Creek would never be the same.